So I just want to start right in looking at a verse in Romans chapter 8. It says, "But we know that all things work together for good to those who love God and to them who are called according to his purpose." He says, all things work together for good. Not all things are good, right? Like, we're going to go through a lot of bad times. Jesus' death wasn't good, but it was worked together for good. And so God is saying, like, there's going to be a lot of bad situations that we go through. There's going to be a lot of problems, hardships. David described it as the valley of the shadow of death that we're going to have to go through. It doesn't mean it's going to be good. God doesn't look at that and say, oh yeah, you're hurting, I'm happy, it's good. Right? God doesn't treat it that way. But he says all things work together for good. And so whenever we do go through a bad situation, we know that God's got it. Nothing is a surprise to God. Nothing is going to derail the calling. You know, nothing that anybody can do is going to stop God. I mean, look at throughout the whole Old Testament. I mean, the whole Old Testament was people trying to stop God from doing things. You know, oh, go in the promised land. Actually, no, we're afraid. I'm going to give you this land. Serve me. Awesome. We're going to serve God. Oh, it's not raining. We'll pray to Baal, make it rain. Repent. God sends a prophet and says, repent, and they kill him. I mean, there was all kinds of situations, and those were the good guys, right? Then you have the bad guys like Pharaoh, and the bad guys, like Naaman from, no, it was Haman. Naaman got healed of leprosy. Haman tried to kill all the Jews. So Haman's the bad guy. And so Haman was trying to kill everybody, and so everybody was trying to stop God's plan. There were very few people, very few faithful men and women who were willing to go with God's plan. And that's why God got to use them in mighty things, because there's very few people who were actually faithful to see it through. You know, most of the time in Israel's case, they backed away during the bad times. You know, times got bad and they didn't say, God, I know you're faithful. You promised rain in the Bible, and so I'm going to believe it. You know, rain was a big deal. John knows out there with the crops, if it doesn't rain, it's a problem. It's a real problem. And John, at least, has the benefit if he can go to Walmart and just go buy crops, or buy food. The Israelites did not have that benefit. If it doesn't rain, they're not going to eat. So it was going to be really scary if it didn't rain. And God was there saying, there was a promise in the Bible saying, basically, if you fear me, if you do what I say, if you, follow the rules, follow the law, offer the sacrifices, if you love me and keep my commandments, I'm going to give it to you. Rain is a promise. But they got scared and they went to Baal, because Baal promised rain, and Baal was also a pervert, and so you could be a pervert and have rain at the same time. And so it basically got everybody distracted. And it's one of those things where they went for the easy road. They went for the fun road. They went for the God that, well, everybody else prays to Baal. Yeah, but the people that prayed to Baal got conquered. They didn't think about that because Baal worship was enjoyable to sin, right? It's easy to get distracted by the cares of this world. Remember that verse? There's the parable of the sower. Jesus says there's a guy that plants a bunch of seeds, and some seed falls on hard ground and the birds just eat it, right? The word is just devour. Some falls on the rocks, and the rocks, and it roots for a little bit, and then it dies off when the sun comes up. And it says some of it falls on good soil, but there's tares and thorns. And so the seed grows up into a plant, but as it grows, the thorns grow up too and choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful. So the plant's alive, but it becomes unfruitful, right? God is saying here, the cares of this world can try and stop us, right? Hard times, bad times can try and stop us. And, we're the only ones that can derail our calling from God, right? Think about it. If God were to say, hey, I'm calling you to go to the Philippines and be a missionary, and you say, yeah, actually, I'm not going to the Philippines and going to be a missionary, you just derailed your own calling. Now, maybe down the road you might go, but, there's a lot of people over there that need a missionary, and you're not there to do it because you're outside of God's calling. But other people can't derail that, right? I mean, think about all of the enemies of Israel that tried to derail them, right? Everybody, how many times in the book of just Kings and Chronicles did armies come and try to conquer Jerusalem? And God's like, nope, it's not time yet. You're not getting conquered until I say you get conquered, because these people are serving me, so I'm not going to let them get defeated. How many times did, the Syrians and the Assyrians and all the different types of people were trying to attack and conquer Jerusalem? They had all kinds of horrible situations. How many times was it that, the Egyptians said, yeah, we're not letting the people go? But that didn't derail God's plan. We're the only ones that can derail it. We're the only ones that can cause a problem and say, I refuse to obey God. But if we're choosing to obey God, nobody else is going to be able to stop it. Pharaoh couldn't stop the Israelites. The enemy couldn't stop Jesus. It's not going to work. Because God is good. God is faithful, and He's going to take care of us. If you look at, there's a verse in John 9, if you've ever thought, why is this all happening to me, right? As we're going through these hard times, why am I going through all of this? It's not fair. There's a verse, and it explains it. So Jesus is walking along in Jerusalem, and he and the disciples see a man who was blind from birth. And the disciples asked Jesus, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Now, that's interesting. It always struck me now. Now, hold on, disciples. How could this man sin that he was born blind? That's impossible. That was a mistake. But, the disciples are trying to freak out. Or the disciples are freaking out because they don't know how to explain why this guy is born blind. Why is this guy in such a horrible position? Whose fault is it? Because a lot of times when hard times hit, we're tempted to blame ourselves, right? We're tempted to blame other people around us. Sometimes we're even tempted to blame God. Well, He's all powerful, so He must have done this to me. We're tempted to do all of these things. And the disciples were saying, maybe this guy sinned, when it's impossible for this guy to sin. He was born blind. That's not possible. See, when we get into this blame game, when we get into looking for natural answers of why bad things are happening, we're going to make stupid statements. We're going to say dumb things. Because sometimes it's not for us to know every little bit of it. But Jesus explained why this man was born blind. He didn't say, well, God just wanted him to suffer for a while. Well, God gets glory from him being blind and being miserable. No, he said, neither this man nor his parents sinned. And he said, but this was done that the works of God should be revealed in him. So then he spit on the ground, made clay, put it on the man's eyes, and said, go wash in the pool of Siloam. And the man went and washed, and came back seeing. And Jesus had left at that time, and all the neighbors were going, is this the guy that was born blind? And some were like, yeah, he's like him. I think it's him. And so it was this big debate. And the guy said, I am him. And they said, well, how did this happen to you? He said, a man called Jesus came and opened my eyes. See, what happened there? God didn't make this man born blind. You know how we know God didn't make this man born blind? It's because Jesus came back to this guy and starts talking to him, and then he starts talking to the Pharisees that were attacking him for being healed. And he was preaching. Well, then the chapter ends, right? We end the story right there. But chapter 10 begins, Jesus is just talking. There's no pause there. He's still talking. So in chapter 10, when he's like, I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. That's the same time that he's talking, the same time that the blind guy got healed. And Jesus in John chapter 10, verse 10 says, the thief has come to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that they may have life and have it more abundantly. So on the same time he encountered a man born blind, it says that this is done that the works of God may be revealed in him, is the same time he says the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I've come to bring life and that you may have it more abundantly. So he's saying, I did not make this guy born blind. God did not make this man born blind. The devil did it. The thief did it. But I, Jesus, is saying, there goes my country accent again. It happened last week too. Okay, I need to work on that. Yeah. But Jesus is saying here, I have come to heal him. I come that he may have life and have it more abundantly. See, the enemy tried to steal from him. He tried to kill his future. He tried to destroy him. But Jesus says, I'm coming that he may have life and have it more abundantly. And he says that this is done that the works of God may be revealed in him. See, God didn't get glory because the enemy made this guy blind. God got glory because Jesus came and made this guy see. And everybody looked at him and said, that's him. Jesus is the man that healed him. And notice, that guy got a testimony. See, the blindness that he went through, the hard time that he went through was temporary. We don't know how old this guy was, but we do know this was temporary. It was not forever. He had to go through hard times that nobody else had to face. But it was all temporary, and Jesus was going to come and fix it. And now that he was healed, see, the blindness was temporary, but the testimony was eternal. Forever, he has that testimony of Jesus healed me. Forever, we're getting encouraged through reading about this guy's story, and we're seeing that our God is still a God of miracles. He did not come and he does not put blindness. He does not put cancer. He does not put deafness. He does not put heart problems. He doesn't put back problems. He doesn't do any of these things. The enemy is the one that does it. But sometimes God allows it so that when he heals it, he gets glory and we get promoted and have a testimony in the process. Believe me, I know what this guy has been going through. Not fully, but I know one thing, right? I'm still in the middle of my story, but I can tell you in the middle of it, mine isn't even fully finished yet in the natural. But I can tell you it's worth it, right? It's already worth it. And it's not even, I don't even have everything yet in the natural, but it's already worth it. I've already seen that. And I've had that perspective when I didn't have it, right? I had that perspective long before I have what I have today, that I knew was going to be worth it. And so when we go through a hard time, we need to see it as it's temporary, and God's going to bring us through it, and we're going to be better off on the other side because God is able to work all things together for good to them that love God. You know, Romans chapter 8 says, if God be for us, who can be against us? If God did not spare his own son, but delivered him up for us all, how will he not also give us freely all things? See, he says, I'm going to give you everything. I gave you my son. I'm not going to withhold healing from you. I'm not going to withhold deliverance from this problem from you. I mean, think about it like this. If I were to come and I were to buy you a house, right? Like, I didn't give you the money. I just gave you a house. It's like, here, take it. Take the deed. And then a while later, you had no money and you said, Rhett, I need $1. If I can afford to buy you a house, I think I can afford to give you $1. Right? The bigger is always more difficult than the strong. Right? If one of you can lift 100 pounds, you can certainly lift 1 pound. Right? Because the bigger is always more difficult. And so Jesus is saying here, God is saying here, I gave my son for you. Do you honestly think I would withhold healing from you? Do you honestly think I would withhold, salvation from your problems from you? I won't withhold anything from you if it's good for you. I'm not going to withhold it. Now, you may have to go through a time without. You may have to go through a time where you don't have everything. But I'm going to bring you through it, and I'm going to work that time together for good. And there's a lot of things that we go through that are not God's best. There's a lot of things that we go through. Sometimes we've done it to ourselves. Sometimes other people have done it to us. Sometimes it's an attack of the enemy. Sometimes it's just a bad situation. A tree fell on our fence and broke one of our fence pieces. We have extra, thank God. But I don't think the enemy was like, I'm going to chop down that tree. No, I mean, I don't think there was a little guy with horns like there with like an axe chopping it down. No, I think it just was like, there's a storm, there's a tree, there's a fence, smash. I don't think it was anything. We live in a fallen world. Bad things are going to happen. We don't need to be concerned about that. God is able. And do you know that fence we got for free? Somebody gave it to us years ago. Just out of the blue. We weren't even asking for it. We just got a fence. Somebody's like, hey, you want one? And it was like extra from a movie set. So you know what? God provided. And God provided extra than we need, right? He gave us extra than what we have set up. because God knew tree's going to fall, smash one of the fences. So we weren't going to have to freak out and go, okay, we got to get another fence because we don't want the dogs to get out. God gave us enough and more than enough. See, I mean, if God cares about things like a tree falling and smashing a fence, God will care about everything, right? He's saying, if he gave us his, who can stand against us? Who's going to be against us? If God didn't even spare Jesus, who can stand against us if they couldn't stop Jesus from raising from the dead? And that's something else here. If they couldn't stop Jesus from the dead, raising from the dead, they can't stop God from doing anything. And when they killed Jesus, the rulers of this age, they honestly thought they won. 2 Corinthians says, if the rulers of this age knew, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. That's in chapter 2. They would not have crucified the Lord of glory. So whenever they killed Jesus, whenever the enemy had Jesus killed, he thought he won. He didn't know he was playing a part in God's plan. They had no idea. See, the plan went like this. We're going to get Jesus' disciple, the guy that runs his money box, Judas. We're going to get him to betray. Then we're going to arrest Jesus when he's by himself. We're going to put him on trial. We're going to find him guilty, and we're going to send him to the Romans. The Romans are going to jam nails into his hands and his feet, and they're going to kill him. Ooh, and let's throw in this. Whenever the Romans are doing this, we're going to stir up the mob, the same mob that yells Hosanna in the highest. We're going to stir them up, and they're going to scream, crucify him, and Jesus is going to be abandoned by his own mobs, by his own people, and guess what? He's going to die, and our problems will be solved. And everything went according to the plan. The devil's plan worked. Jesus was betrayed by his own. He was put on trial. He was betrayed by the people that said, oh, we love you, we love you. And then 5 days later, they're yelling, crucify. On Sunday, they say, you're the king. And on Thursday night, they're yelling, we have no king but Caesar. They hated Caesar. Like, that's how demonic this thing was going. They delivered him to the Romans. The Romans killed him. They knew he was innocent. The Romans knew it. Pontius Pilate, the governor, knew Jesus was innocent. And he killed him anyway. And Jesus, guess what happened? He died. He didn't get up. Right? He didn't get off the cross when they were mocking him. They left him there right? He was on the cross. They took him down. They put him in a tomb. And then they put guards by the tomb and said, oh yeah, if the disciples try and steal the body, we're going to put guards there and they're going to kill him. We're going to have a night watch. We're going to have one guard there at all times. You know those watches, they'd had 4 guards and they would swap off all the time. So every second of every day, there was going to be a Roman there with a big sword, and if you step next to him, he's going to kill you. They won. And yet, here we are, right? Because if the rulers of this age knew, they wouldn't have crucified the Lord of glory. It was part of the plan. Jesus had to be betrayed. He had to be abandoned by the mob. He had to be put on trial. And, he didn't defend himself on trial. When he was arrested, he said, I could call down 12 legions of angels. I'm not going to. And just for any of you smart people out there who might have that interesting nudging in your head, how many guys are in a legion? 72,000 would be in 12 legions. So, just to let you guys know a fact that everybody needs to hear. 72,000 or 12 legions, because the legions anywhere between 5,000 and 6,000 troops. So those are the things that interest me, so they're going to be put in the message. But, you ought to hear me throughout the week. Sunday, I'm all about God. Monday through Friday, there's a lot of history in there. Hey, did you know Alexander the Great? So, you're if you guys get to know me long enough, Cole, you're still not to that point. You still don't get that many history facts, thank God. It's pretty funny though, because they say no more history facts, but so I'm going to put one in my message. But here's the thing. He said, I'm going to put the history. I'm going to put the history. Oh my gosh, I got all caught off guard. I should not have said that. Thanks a lot, guys. No, but if you guys would let me do it throughout the week, I wouldn't have to do it here. No, but the thing is, 72,000 troops. He's like, I could call them down. One angel killed 158,000 Syrians. So, they could kill the world like 1,000,000 times over. They're good. These angels are good at what they do. And God, Jesus was saying, like, these are all at my disposal. I could call them down right now. I could just send one and kill all of you. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to let myself die. He was put on trial. He didn't defend himself. He was put in front of the Romans. He was put in front of the Romans. And they knew he was innocent. He didn't say anything. I mean, he didn't say, hey, they're lying about me. Hey, I've never said revolt against Caesar. I said pay your taxes. I'm going to have a guy named Paul in about 40 years, right? Be subject to the governing authority because I'm outside of time and I can do that. He didn't say, I'm not against Rome. He said, hey, I'm a king, but I'm not the kind of king you think I am. I'm a spiritual king. He kept everything on the spiritual. And then when he was crucified and was on the cross, he didn't say, I'm going to come down off that cross and I'm going to kill every one of you. He didn't say to the crowds when they were yelling, crucify him. He didn't say, hey, you remember I healed you guys like 5 days ago. You remember Joe? I healed Joe. Remember Sam? I healed Sam. All your friends and neighbors, I used to heal them. I used to preach to you guys. I would, defend you when the Pharisees were trying to steal from you. Remember these guys? These guys are evil. He didn't do that because it was all part of the plan. He let himself die so that God could raise him from the dead. From the dead. See, the whole, our faith is based around everything looked hopeless. Everything looked like it was a mistake. People can't wrap their heads around it. They're like, how could God have allowed this to happen? Because God allowed it to happen because he knew he was going to win. And they couldn't stop Jesus, and he rose from the dead anyway. And now he's king of heaven and earth. And now he's shared his kingdom with us. He's made us joint heirs with Christ. And so we have to have this mind. Like it says, let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. We have to think the way that Jesus thought of, okay, I'm going to go to the cross. I'm going to die, but I'm going to raise from the dead. Take up your cross and follow me. That's in the Bible. We have to have that thought of, you know what? I'm going to go through hard times, but I know God's going to bring me through it. I know God's not going to let me fall through it. I know God's going to bring me around it to the other side. And I know I'm going to be better off. Somehow, some way, I'm going to be better off. I don't know how yet. Think of Joseph. He was thrown in Egypt as a slave. Became the governor, the ruler of the most powerful country in the world. Second in command, which was even better because no one wanted to assassinate him. They always wanted to assassinate the boss. He didn't have to do all that stuff. But he had all the authority that the Pharaoh had. He said, only in regards to the throne will I be better than you. So no sitting in my chair, but other than that, you can have everything. Joseph had everything. And it all came from the fact he was thrown in a pit and sold as a slave. See, God's able to work all things together for good to them that love God. See, we've got to love God though. And not just say we love God. Like not just say, I'm a Christian, so I love God. No, love God, like have a relationship with God, be close with God. Jesus had the faith to go to the cross because he could pray, God, not my will, but your will be done. He would talk to God. God revealed to him, you're going to go to the cross. In 3 days, you're going to be raised from the dead. God would reveal these things to him. And God saved him from it. Right? He saved Jesus through the end of it, right? Jesus was dead, and God brought him back. If God can do that for Jesus, he can do that for us. Nothing we go through is worse than what Jesus went through. It's all smaller. If God can do one giant thing, he can do a very small thing. And so we don't need to be afraid. We just need to have that close relationship with God because that's what's going to help us get through it. The other thing is that he says to them that love God and are called according to his purpose. We have to recognize we're called to something. God has a plan for us. Now, some of us may not know what that plan is. Some of us may not know it yet. Some of us may know it in glimpses, where we may know, okay, like I want to be a preacher. I don't know what that all looks like. I just know I'm called to preach. Some people may have this whole plan out. Some people may have no idea what they're doing. And they're going, well, God, why am I here? What am I doing? He still has a plan. We're still called, whether we know the calling or not. And we don't have to know. 2 Corinthians chapter 2 says, who has known the mind of the Lord that we may instruct him? But we have the mind of Christ. We can't instruct God. It's not for us to tell God, God, I don't know what's going on. You need to reveal that to me. We can ask him, but we can't tell him. We can't force God to do anything he doesn't want to do. If God doesn't want to tell us, we can ask him, but if he doesn't want to tell us, it doesn't mean we have to, we cannot base our obedience based on what he told us and what he didn't tell us. Because if we do that, we're going to miss God in a huge way. We're going to totally miss God if we have to know everything in advance. God, how are you going to knock down the walls of Jericho? How are you going to, defeat this army? How am I going to get across the Red Sea? God, how's Pharaoh going to, know that, how's Pharaoh going to let my people go? God, how am I going to have a child when I'm 100 and some odd years old? How's this going to work? He didn't tell anybody. They said, go do it. God said, go do it, and he did. And these people, they followed God, and they did without knowing. We don't have a right to instruct God, but we have the mind of Christ. Meaning that we can think like Christ thinks. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God did not consider it something to be held on to be equal with God, but making himself of no reputation, he took the form of a bondservant and came and when he was found in the likeness of a man, and he became obedient, even to the death of the cross. We have to be willing to even go to the cross, so to speak. Take up our cross and follow him. That's the calling for Christianity. That's our life. Times are going to get bad. We are going to go through hard times. There's going to be times when it looks like there's no hope. But we know that there is hope because God raised Jesus from the dead. And if God did not even spare his own son, how will he also not give us freely all things? He's going to do it. It's in the Bible. It's a promise. If God gave us something, if God gave us a calling, no man can steal it. We can if we don't follow him. But God never gives up. How many times did David make mistakes and Moses made mistakes? And all of the heroes of faith, they made mistakes. They did things wrong. But God still was with them. It didn't ruin their plans. How many times did people try to attack? David's called to be king, but King Saul's like, yeah, I'm gonna kill you first. And the enemy sent Goliath after him, and the enemy sent, Philistines to hunt him down. The enemy had rebellions against David. Oh yeah, you're king. I'm going to take your kingdom away from you. I'm going to kill you for it. I'm going to put your son, who's a horrible person, ahead on the throne. And yet God was faithful every single time. No one could stop the calling. Nobody on the outside can stop God's calling on your life, no matter how bad it gets. I was born blind, and here I am preaching, right? The enemy couldn't stop it. The enemy's not going to stop it. He can't stop me. He can't stop you. He's not going to stop any of us if we just love God, trust in him, that God is going to work all things together for good to them that love him. And so it's just simply, I'm going to trust God. I'm going to do what God says. I don't have to know everything, but I know he's faithful and I know he's going to take care of me.
I hope you enjoyed today's message. I want to hear your thoughts on today's topic, so please leave a comment below. Also, remember to like this message so more people will see it, and subscribe to my channel so you will see future videos. Please consider donating using the links in the description. Your gifts make this channel possible. Thank you for watching. See you next week.